See everybody this morning on the weekend after Thanksgiving. I trust everyone had as much safe fun as possible and good food and some good company. And if not, you're in good company today, but no good food. Ours is all gone. Welcome to our shared virtual sacred space this morning. Let's settle in. Check out the chat if you like. Amy has decorated her tree with masks and toilet paper. I think that's very appropriate for 2020. And please turn off any devices that might make noise, or if you stay muted, that won't be a problem. If you have your own chalice at home, please locate it so that when we light ours as part of the service, you can light yours with hundreds of thousands of Unitarians across the world. And now we will have our committee moments, and Ann Packham is going to look for raised, virtual, and waving hands.
Looks like I'm unmuted now. Yes, so if you are a committee chair or committee member with something to share with the congregation, please either raise your virtual hand or your physical hand, and I will try to scan around for things I see. First, I'll go ahead with the physical hands because I can see them quicker. It looks like Lorraine has something to say. Can you unmute yourself, Lorraine?
Yes. Good morning. The Pastoral Care Committee will be hosting its fire pit chat this Thursday morning at 9:30. Bring your mask, bring a yard chair and a cup of coffee or tea, and sit around and talk with your friends for a little bit. Hope to see you there.
Thank you, Lorraine. Who else had committee moment? Looks like Marianne I see next. Marianne, go unmute yourself.
Thank you. So the Social Action Committee met last Sunday. We have formed a subcommittee to come up with a tentative plan. We're looking for a comprehensive approach that would take us through the year. And we're going to meet again next Sunday. So anyone interested, it'll be in Notable News, the Zoom, but it's going to be at 11:55 after service next Sunday. And we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Who else? I'll go ahead and jump in since I don't want to forget. The women's group meets this Friday. We're going to continue on Zoom on Friday. We had talked about doing something in person. Roberta expressed some concerns about the time of the day and traffic and whatnot. So I think we're going to try to do something around the fire pit, maybe at some point before the end of the year at a time that's not traffic bad. But for this Friday, we'll stick with our virtual meeting on Zoom. If you're not on the women's group email list, send me an email. I'll put my address in the chat. Who else? Anybody else? I'm looking for physical hands. I don't see any virtual. No, maybe that's it for today. Okay, back to you, Martha.
Yeah, we're all relaxing a little bit over the holidays, which is not a bad thing. So, well, once again, good morning and welcome to the University Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Welcome to this place of peace. May we find some moments of quiet contemplation. Welcome to this place of celebration. May our hearts soar with gratitude for the gift of life. Welcome to this place of sacred love. May we gently hold all that is broken here. Welcome to this place of inquiry. Here may we be challenged to open our minds and hearts ever wider. Come into this place of community. May we together draw the circle of love and justice ever wider. Welcome to this sacred place. Come, let us worship, celebrate, grieve, and love together. For our opening music this morning, We Are Gathered. Words by Amanda Eudes Kessler and music by Nettleton. Please enjoy.
We are gathered in the Spirit, though our bodies are apart, filled with joy and touched with wonder, separate hands but mingled hearts, giving thanks and singing praises for the love that calls us on. From our many different places, we are gathered into one. We are gathered in our sorrow. We are gathered in our fear, in our pain and in our worry, in our anger and our tears, as we tend to one another with our gifts and with our care. Our community is strengthened through the faith and hope we share. We are gathered in commitment to our planet that is whole. Works of justice, acts of kindness, bless the world and heal our souls. As our voices join together, may our song of peace resound. May we offer in abundance all the grace that we have found.
Please join me as we light our chalice. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. And as we speak together, although silently, our affirmation, love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. Again, welcome this morning. If you are a guest, we certainly invite you to visit with us more than once. Although we do have a variety of speakers, each speaks to our principles and values that we hold dear and helps us explore ways to move towards beloved community. So join us every week, get to know us a little bit, and hopefully we'll be able to visit in person sometime soon in the coming year. Joys and concerns are a special moment for our congregation. We share with each other moments of joy and concerns that weigh on our hearts, and sharing with each other helps us all be more in community. So I'm going to turn this over to Amanda Major.
it for thoughts and for joys and concerns, let us take a moment. Let us hold any spoken or silent joys and concerns in our hearts, whether shared from our sacred community or our wider world. May the light of peace, may the light of hope, may the light of healing resonate within us all. So may it be. All right, Martha, back over to you.
Yes. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you. Now back to Judith Stein Farrell for our Time for All Ages. What do we have in store today?
We have a story in store for today. Thank you for asking. This morning, I'm presenting a story that comes from one of our 6 sources. I found it in Tapestry of Faith's curriculum, moral stories. But the story comes out of a folk tale out of Persia, was inspired into Tapestry of Faith from a story by a gentleman named Malba Tahan. I know I'm pronouncing it wrong, but he, oddly enough, was a mathematics professor, teacher in Brazil. In my RE newsletter that I'm going to send out this next week, I'll include a link to the story that he wrote, the book he wrote called The Man Who Counts, which is rather inspiring looking. So I would encourage everyone to take a look, because this is an example of how our 6 sources are important, and the fact that we can get message and learning from a very diverse, very involved world. So the story is Musa and Najib, and it feeds into Joe's talk this morning. He and I consulted on the story, and I'm looking forward to hearing how he integrates the message, or where his message goes that this relates to. So once there were these 2 friends in ancient Persia, Musa and Najib, and they took a trip across the land by camel. See if I can get us to progress. There we go. And along that trip, took a stop by a river in the mountains where there were also trees and shade. And they took a break to give the camel a break, to give them some rest, and took a walk and started to have a discussion. And along with that discussion, it got very heated and it became an argument. And in the heat of the argument, Najib did something he had never done. He got so angry, he slapped his friend Musa across the face. Well, Musa was stunned, and immediately he thought how angry he was, and his first thought was to slap his friend Najib back. But he stopped himself and he thought about it, and he said, I cannot hit my friend back. I could have gotten that angry myself. I might have done the same thing. So he walked over to a tree and he broke off a branch, and he turned and he wrote in the sand, "Today, my best friend slapped me." And he and his friend Najib just stood there for a little while and stared at the writing and thought for a while, and with time watched the wind blow the sand over the writing, and slowly the writing faded and eventually disappeared. And as that time passed, Najib calmed down and he turned to his friend and apologized. And his friend looked at him and accepted his apology. They got moving again and went on, continued their trip. And along the way, continued their discussion, and they ended up they reached their destination, finished their work, and turned around to go back home. And on the way home, they stopped again at the same river. The river had swollen up in the rains, and so they decided to take a swim. Musa and Najib walked down to the shore, and Musa was the first in the water and stepped on a rock and immediately fell over, slipped and fell, and was pulled by the current and started to drown. Najib jumped into the water without even thinking, grabbed his friend by the arm and pulled him back to safety. The two of them sat on the shore, getting their breath, overwrought by what had just happened. And as they calmed down, Musa began to think. And he looked at his friend, and he looked at the water, and he went over to the camel and reached into the saddlebags and pulled out a long, sharp knife. And then he went over to the rocks and he engraved into the rocks, "Today my best friend saved me." And he and Najib sat there for a bit and just stared at the water and the quiet and thought for a few minutes. After a while, Najib looked over to his friend and he said, "When we were here before and I slapped you, you wrote into the sand that I slapped you. And today, after I saved you, you wrote into the stone that I saved you. Why did you do that?" Musa replied, "Well, when someone hurts us, we should write it down in the sand so the winds of forgiveness can erase it and ease it away and provide opportunity. This way our hearts are free from bitterness and we can renew our friendships. But when someone does something kind for us, we must engrave it in stone and in our hearts, so we will never forget." Najib was grateful. "Thank you, my friend. I'm glad for our friendship, and I never want to do that kind of harm again." The two friends embraced and continued on their journey together. And I ask you all to consider if there are things in your life that are better written in sand and things that are better written in stone. And I hand it back to you, Martha.
Wise words for contemplation. Thank you, Judith. Thank you. We'll take a brief moment now, listen to a tune from Lou Murray, one of our members that we haven't seen in a while. I need to check in with her. She's down in Kissimmee with the Methodist Church, and hopefully she's doing well. This, rather than a social justice organization, from now through mid-December, our Share the Plate will be used to supplement staff bonuses. We usually give a holiday bonus to our wonderful RE staff, our director of education, our administrator. And this year, just think about all that they've done to help keep us connected, as Joey mentioned, keeping everything running and stepping up in this virtual world. It's been a little difficult with RE and children, and they've organized some great outdoor events safely. And just let your hearts be your guide as we take a brief moment for our offering. There's a donate button on the website, or as always, you can write a check. And if you need the church address, just call me and I'll make sure that you get it.
Oh my God, people.
Let's stay on mute. And here's the music. Thank you. Thank you. I love listening to Lou's music. She's quite a talent. Before I introduce Joe, or reintroduce to some of you, I have a reading that will be pertinent to his words. There is a Buddhist teaching found in the Salatha Sutta known as the arrow. It says if an arrow hits you, you will feel pain in that part of your body where the arrow hit. And then if a second arrow comes and strikes exactly at the same spot, the pain will not be only double, it will become at least 10 times more intense. The unwelcome things that sometimes happen in life, being rejected, losing a valuable object, failing a test, getting injured in an accident, are analogous to the first arrow. They cause some pain. The second arrow, fired by our own selves, is our reaction, our storyline, and our anxiety. All these things magnify the suffering. Many times, the ultimate disaster we're ruminating upon hasn't even happened. We may worry, for example, that we have cancer and that we're going to die soon. We don't know, and our fear of the unknown makes the pain grow even bigger. The second arrow may take the form of judgment. How could I have been so stupid? Fear. What if the pain doesn't go away? Or anger. I hate that I'm in pain. I don't deserve this. We can quickly conjure up a hell realm of negativity in our minds that multiplies the stress of the actual event by 10 times or even more. Part of the art of suffering well is learning not to magnify our pain by getting carried away in fear, anger, and despair. We build and maintain our energy reserves to handle the big sufferings. The little sufferings we can let go. If you lose your job, of course it's a normal response to feel fear and anxiety. It is true that in most cases, to be out of work is a suffering, and there is real danger attached if you don't have enough to eat or can't afford necessary medicine. But you don't need to make this suffering worse by spinning stories in your head that are much worse than the reality. Some people in this situation may think, I'm no good at this or that, or I'll never get another job, or I failed my family. It's important to remember that everything is impermanent. A suffering can arise or can work itself out for anyone at any moment. Instead of throwing good energy away on condemning yourself or obsessing over what catastrophes might be lurking around the corner, you could simply be present with the real suffering that is right in front of you, with what is happening right now. Mindfulness is recognizing what is there in the present moment. Suffering is there, yes, but what is also there is that you are still alive. Breathing in, I know I'm alive. This was from Thich Nhat Hanh, No Mud, No Lotus, The Art of Transforming Suffering. And I'm going to turn it over now to the almost Reverend Joe Donaton, who will be ordained on the 19th of December, I believe he said. He was a member of First U when he had his calling. He interned at Summerfield, Tri-County, near the Villages, and he just graduated from Iliff Theological Seminary and has passed the final review of the Ministerial Fellowship Committee of the UUA. So he will be welcomed as a newly minted Unitarian minister officially really soon. So welcome back, Joe.
Thank you so much, Martha. When I hear it listed out like that, there are so many boxes to check. But I am really looking forward to ordination coming up on the 19th. I'm also grateful to be invited back. It's always a joy to join with you all in fellowship. And I hope you take some meaning from the words that I'm going to share with you today. I'd like to open this message with a prayer. It's not a prayer that I wrote, but let's take a moment to consider it. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love, that where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord, I may bring harmony, that where there is error, I may bring truth, that where there is doubt, I may bring faith, that where there is despair, I may bring hope, that where there are shadows, I may bring light, that where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds. It is by forgiving that one is forgiven. It is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Amen. Now, some of you may know this as the peace prayer. Some of us know this as the 11th step prayer. And a good many of you probably recognize this as the prayer of Saint Francis. That where there is discord, I may bring harmony. To seek to understand than to be understood. Now, however, this poem was not written by Saint Francis, my all-time favorite saint. Though it resonates with his theology, it differs in a couple of deeply nerdy theological ways that I'm not going to get into. This prayer was first published in 1912 in a French Roman Catholic magazine called La Clochette, the Little Bell. That where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness. It is by forgiving that one is forgiven. The prayer was wildly popular and was eventually distributed on the back of a card. The prayer on one side and an image of Saint Francis on the other. Thereby the connection. And the rest is history. But is it? Does this decidedly Christian sentiment belong in a UU church? Or does it belong left in the past? Now, I don't know about you, but right now I could sure use a little peace. I see an unfortunate truth. As we look ahead over the next few months or years, there is a deep and ugly canyon cracking our social landscape in two. Half of us on one side, most of our neighbors on the other. Now, innumerable news articles have explored how we got so divided, and many suggest how politically we might stitch this nation back together. But I don't think those articles have it quite right yet. In the articles, there's so much of this we-they language. It's easy to forget that ultimately there is no we-they. There's really only we. We are facing a pandemic of truly historic proportions, and we are dying. We are facing a slow-moving economic collapse, and we are hurting. We need community now more than ever, and we have often forgotten how to talk to our neighbors. The trauma of this pandemic and the added stress of such an ugly election cycle is truly universal. However, are we going to fix this? And I think the answer lives here in our hearts. So maybe the resonance of St. Francis calling out in a 100-year-old Christian poem does have some use for us today. Line by line, the prayer asks us to look beyond ourselves. And how can we begin to affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person if we refuse to see the humanity of one with whom we disagree? How do we respect the interdependent web of life, of which we are all a part, no exceptions, when our hurt continues to push away large groups of people, making them other from ourselves? Now, we Unitarian Universalists may not have a creed, but our nation does. And it's spelled out in our Pledge of Allegiance. It's one of unity. We are one nation, indivisible. And that should resonate with us. Unity has informed so much of our justice work when it comes to women, LGBTQ people, and all the instances of racial oppression. We know that we can only solve these problems with a deep and abiding understanding. There cannot be in-groups and out-groups. We are all one human family. The human struggle is to make it from birth to death and experience a little joy and a little love along the way. If for no other reason, we, all of us, are unified in that human struggle. Now, these divisions I speak of, they won't heal themselves. But where to begin? I suggest we start with forgiveness. And I think St. Francis might agree. Now, I don't mean any of this to imply that our pain, our wounds, our scars don't or shouldn't matter. They do. In many ways, they make us who we are. Our wounds reveal to us where we are tender. They bring out ways we are strong, and they help us bind together more tightly within our given communities. The forgiveness I'm talking about is much more about the one doing the forgiving than the one being forgiven. In 12-step recovery, we work hard to process through our resentments and make amends to those we resent. Now, resentments are toxic points of anger, frustration, contempt, disgust, and they can bubble away under the surface. Our resentments keep us in a state of trauma, holding us tight to the pain, defined by the wound. And in our impassioned world today, I often see resentment rise up out of me as righteous indignation. Now, one recovery text lays it out like this, quote, "These obstacles, however, are very real. The first and one of the most difficult has to do with forgiveness. The moment we ponder a twisted or broken relationship with another person, our emotions go on the defensive. To escape looking at the wrongs we have done to another, we resentfully focus on the wrong he has done to us. This is especially true if he has, in fact, behaved badly at all. Triumphantly, we seize upon his misbehavior as the perfect excuse for minimizing or forgetting our own." And I will take a moment to apologize for the gendered language in the original work. But triumphantly, we seize upon that other person's misbehavior as a perfect excuse for minimizing or forgetting our own. Now, we make these amends not to seek to be forgiven or to give that other person an opportunity to tell us that we are right and they have been behaving badly towards us. Instead, we focus on our own part in these twisted and broken relationships. We make these amends to release ourselves from these toxic stuck points that keep us from moving on. And why hold on to these resentments anyways? What purpose do they serve? Between the pandemic and the economic meltdown, families mourning losses and parents jobless for months, fearing for their hungry children, we are still in crisis. Continuing to harbor resentments to those we believe are to blame wastes precious energy. And I know I have no energy to waste. Now, politically, we did the thing. We made our voices heard, and the will of the people will be carried. It's just going to take some time to sort all that out. So we've done great work already. But in sorting it out, it's kind of like a mom at the grocery store picking up the contents of her purse while her toddler is having a meltdown that will not stop. We addressed the big problem and better leadership is coming, but not for almost 2 months. What are we going to do in the next 2 months to help our neighbors? As a UU who finds meaning in the Christian tradition, I find a lot of comfort and many examples of living through love in the Gospels. My favorite is the Gospel of Luke, and in there we find a very familiar story, the parable of the prodigal son. Now, Luke is quoting Jesus, and Jesus tells it something like this, and I'm going to paraphrase. A wealthy farmer has 2 sons. Upon reaching adulthood, his younger son asks for his inheritance and then goes out into the world. While he's out there, he never bothers to send a message back to his family. And out in the world, he proceeds to squander his inheritance. Now penniless, he takes odd jobs as a field laborer, and he is miserable. One day he remembers, oh, hey, my dad is a wealthy farmer. Maybe I don't deserve to come back and live as his son because I just wasted all his money, but maybe he will hire me on as a field hand. So the son returns home. When he returns, his father welcomes him with open arms and restores the son's place in the family. Now, this is where most people trail off. Good story, happy ending, all done. But there is a second half to this story. The older son, who had stayed home and remained dutiful to his father, observes this very warm welcome and refuses to join in celebrating the younger son's return. The farmer goes to him and asks why he's upset, and the older son lays it all out. He says, that son of yours goes out into the world and wastes all your money on worldly things, comes back, and you welcome him home in celebration with the slaughtering of a fatted calf. Meanwhile, I have remained at your side, done the stand-up thing as your son, and we have never celebrated any of my milestones with so much as a little goat. It's not fair. To which the father replies, son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found. Now you can find this story in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, verses 11 to 32. Now that second half, that's the important half. For his father, it didn't matter what his son had been doing out there in the world. It didn't matter that he had lived his life with values the rest of the family didn't share. And there's a subtle and brilliant thing that Jesus does with his word choice. In the text, the older brother actually refers to his brother as that son of yours, creating distance between both his brother and now his father with whom he disagrees. The dad picks up that ball and lobs it right back. He says, that brother of yours when responding, putting the two brothers back together. The Father doesn't care about the disagreement on values as much as he is overjoyed by the reunification of his family. Here, forgiveness serves a higher purpose. That where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness. That where there is discord, I may bring harmony. Now, I realize that this may not be everyone's cup of tea. Maybe you don't quite feel ready to forgive, and no amount of Christian scripture is going to change that. I get it. But let's explore this from another tradition. Buddhist monk Than Isaro Bhikkhu suggests the following, and I'm going to quote him directly so I don't get it wrong. Quote, "Forgiveness may not be able to undo old bad karma, but it can prevent new bad karma from being done. This is especially true when the bad karma called Vera, with the bad karma called Vera. Vera is a particular instance of hostility, animosity, or antagonism, the vengeful animosity that wants to get back at someone for perceived wrongs. This attitude is what has no place in Buddhist practice. Patience can weaken it, but forgiveness is what clears it out of the way." In the Dhammapada, a popular collection of early Buddhist poems, there is word of Vera in two contexts. The first is when someone has injured you and you'd like to inflict some injury back. The second is when you've lost a contest and want to get even. In both cases, forgiveness is what puts an end to Vera. You resolve not to settle the score, even if society grants you the right to do so, because you realize that from the point of view of karma, the only real score in contests like this consists of more bad karma points for both sides. So in forgiving the other side, you're basically promising yourself to forego any opportunity to add to that score. You have no idea how many lifetimes this particular karmic mud has been going back and forth, but you do know that the only way to end it is to stop the Vera. And if the end doesn't first start with you, it may never arrive. And recall also today's reading. Another Buddhist monk, Thich Nhat Hanh, gave us the example of two arrows. The first arrow strikes us and causes pain. The second arrow hitting the same spot causes 10 times as much pain. That second arrow is our reaction to that first arrow. We cannot control anything in this world but ourselves. We can't preemptively stop the arrows that will hit us. But we can control how we respond. Do we want to magnify our pain with that second arrow? Perhaps instead, we forgive. Friends, we Unitarian Universalists are uniquely suited to shaping this next chapter. We know how to bring our whole selves to the table, and we know how to invite everyone to that same table. We have always had a clear vision of the future, and that vision has always been one filled with harmony and love. And Lord knows we are not perfect. When we have failed to live up to our own high standards, we learned how to own our place in the discord, admit our shortcomings so that we could continue to strive for just and equitable resolutions. And now, as we have done again and again and again in our history, in Selma, with women's reproductive rights alongside our LGBTQ siblings, and in defense of our own Mother Earth, we must again take the high road. We must again model a love-informed way forward. Because we believe, we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Because we affirm the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are all a part. Because it is up to us to begin to build that bridge across the deep canyon of our divide. Because if it doesn't start with us, it may not happen at all. And I believe that bridge cannot be built without a mighty portion of forgiveness. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. May it be so, and amen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joe. There are several questions and comments in the chat, and I hope that you will look at those. And if you can stay a little bit after we finish the service, we kind of will have a continuing conversation. If you're there, maybe you can give us some words of wisdom on how. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Thank you. I do feel that we are specifically called to lead the way forward. So thank you. I believe, we'll extinguish the chalice. My cat already put mine out, but please join me in these words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing music. You can do this hard thing. I don't know if we're going to have the words. I couldn't find the email, but please enjoy this wonderful song by Carrie Newcomer.
There at the table with my head in my hands, a column of numbers I just did not understand. You said add these together, carry the two. Now you can do this hard thing. You can do this hard thing. It's not easy, I know, but I believe that it's so. You can do this hard thing. At a cold winter station, breathing into our gloves, it would change me forever, leaving for God knows what. You carried my bags, you said I'll wait for you. You can do this hard thing. You can do this hard thing. It's not easy, I know, but I believe that it's so. You can do this hard thing. Late at night I called and you answered the phone. The worst it had happened and I did not want to be alone. You quietly listened, you said we'll see this through. You can do this hard thing. You can do this hard thing. It's not easy, I know, but I believe that it's so. You can do this hard thing. Hearts hung like a long From the muddy ground comes a green volunteer. In a place we thought barren, new life appears. Morning will come whistling some comforting tune for you. You can do this hard thing. You can do this hard thing. It's not easy, I know, but I believe that it's so. You can do this hard thing.
Thank you, Judith, for finding the words and putting those in the chat. I just love that song. Closing words today are from Samuel A. Trumbore, a Unitarian minister. Go forth in simplicity, find and walk the path that leads to compassion and wisdom, that leads to happiness, peace, and ease. Welcome the stranger and open your heart to a world in need of healing. Be courageous before the forces of hate. Hold and embody a vision of the common good that serves the needs of all people. May it be so. Thank you all for joining us this morning. And Patrick is going to, or someone is going to unmute everyone so the cacophony can begin. And I hope that Joe has had time. One of the first questions, Joe,